Chapter 14. Barthow suddenly realized he was free to move. He could not know this, but the spell that held him expired with Cleet. He writhed around in the dirt, face down where he fell during the battle, and made sure he had all his appendages, then pushed himself up to his hands and knees and looked around. He noticed his coat, clothes, and hat were burnt, still smoldering. Leaning back onto his knees and heels, he patted himself all over where he could reach, making sure there wasn't still something truly on fire. Satisfied that the threat had passed, he looked around to see if there was a clue to what had happened. He had been unable to move or hear for what felt like an hour. He couldn't remember anything past coming down the stairs either. That was clearly a spell of some kind, although he had no idea what kind. He glanced to his right to find that the large wardrobe had been moved aside, revealing a door. Just to his left was a sickening pile of human bones and flesh. He recoiled up to his feet, grabbed his pistol off the floor, and went straight through that newly revealed door. A quick look showed nothing of note in the dark, and he went up the stairs as quickly as he could, only to find all three brothers had been killed. A black, burnt-looking wound was laid across their eyes, and bloody blisterings surrounding that. All three sat in their seats, right where he had left them, eating and joking just moments before. "Well, shit. Oh, no. Mother and Raileanu," is all he said before pinching his eyes shut and dislocating to their home. "Mother! Raileanu! Are you here?" he hollered, having arrived in the front yard, running to the house, stopping in the doorway to watch me lift my eyes from beside the elf. He looked terrible. His hair was burned, his hat and overcoat looked completely burned from behind, nearly falling off in pieces. His hands were blackened by soot. "Are you all right? What happened?" I asked him, looking upset at his condition. "Yeah, boy." He finally noticed how badly his clothes had suffered, shaking them off. "I'm fine. Someone stunned me or froze me or something. I was at the mission, heading downstairs to check on a racket. I woke up just a moment ago to find myself almost burnt. A pile of mush that used to be a feller missing a tooth, and all three brothers who'd arrived were killed deader than a doornail. What the hell, son? Where's your mama? Where's Bandos? Who the hell is that? What's that big, purple, split mouse on your head? Who is that?" Pointing to the elf on the couch, pistol still in hand, whom I was beside. "Is that a... I- I- is it a... is that a dang elf?" Yeah, it is. I can explain. I guess, well, what I just learned was the cause of all this. Why it was so important to figure out what happened to Daddy. Wait, are you sure you're okay? You look like you got chucked in a fire." Yeah. Ain't no accident my great-grandparents moved to these parts at the end of the 1600s. Ever since they burned a mess of my kinfolk at the stake back then, most of us have been born fireproof. Must be those strong survival traits we Cordons got. What the hell is that shiny ball thing that elf got? He pointed at it. Honestly, it's the cause of all this. The elf had been working with the professor to determine if something similar was present, which might be causing some of this. It's some kind of old relic from prehistory. When the high elves were pretty sure one was here, he came and met with me and Mama, and I told him where it might be, and he went straight there, into that basement at the mission. I turned back to look at the elf. That makes some sense, I reckon. I mean, he could have froze me. Then that other feller must have killed them boys and fried me." Barthow took off his hat, surveying the damage it had sustained. "Dang it! My hat!" "Right after he left, that man came. He killed Mama and Bandos, and had me dead to rights. He offered to spare me if I told him where the elf had gone. Heck, froze me. Then he pistol whipped me with my own pistol using magic. Stabbed me. With everyone dead, I hoped the elf could handle himself, and that with you maybe still there, he would get nowhere. I looked back at Barthow, who was just shaking his head. I'm not sure what happened, but the elf came back here, all burned up, barely alive. He buried Mama with Daddy. He sent bandos back to his people, healed me, and told me about this orb thing. Said I had to get it to the professor, that he would know what to do. He passed on not 5 minutes ago. That must have been him that froze me then. I was released about that same time. Came to, and saw all that happened. That there elf tore that fool to pieces. Left him in a pile of guts and bones. Barthow looked around the area where Cleet was lying. He saw the silver-pointed tooth. That there tooth must come out of that dirty bandit. Can I see it? Yeah, of course. I waved at it. I turned and sat with a thump on the floor, facing Barthow now. He picked it up and went over it, looking sternly. There's a rune or something here, on the front of it. I'm sorry, son, I don't know my runes at all. But there's only one, and this looks like a canine tooth, but longer. This here ain't something you just get out of a tray at some dentist. Some fella made this particular for 'em. A lot of good that does me. I can't dislocate. I can't talk to the professor in the portrait. Heck, I can't even tell if he's there or not. Literally, my entire family has died in a week, along with virtually every single person I knew round here, all because of a stupid ball. I held my head in my hands, feeling so much anger and loss at once that I thought my head would split. My fingers dug into my scalp so hard, the knuckles all went white. Well, look, son. I know this is bad all round. I gotta get back to the mission and clean that up, before someone comes round and finds signs of magic inside that mission killing folks. Now, you're gonna have to hold on a while. I'll be back and talk to that professor for you. And take your time with your grief and whatnot. Don't do nothing drastic, son. You ain't alone in this. Don't talk like that. Here. He reached into his pocket and pulled a small round jar with green paste in it, chucking it underhanded to me. This is rosemary and western sage oil with crushed leaves. Put this on that lump you got on your head there. That mouse'll be gone in an hour. Barthow, still working like a hero, half burned up, feeding folks, fighting evil wizards, just patted me on the shoulder a couple of times and took off. From what I knew, his early years were as bad as mine were now. He knows the world goes on beating away on us whether we like it or not. It's much harder to grind someone down if they're constantly running and working on the tasks God gives us each day. The grinder gets you when you slow down trying to carry the weight of yesterday and tomorrow, and finally give way to the weight of more tomorrows and more yesterdays, and lie down under the burden. So I will try to take the burden of today, of tonight, lay down the burden of the last couple weeks at the feet of God to handle, and be ready for tomorrow, because that's when the task begins of finding these monsters who would employ this kind of trash, and kill them. I took all the hastily transcribed pages of what Cleet had said and put them into my inside vest pocket. If this information was real, which it seemed to be, this isn't the kind of thing to leave lying around. In fact, I considered burning it, as I could remember most of it, having heard it in such a dramatic episode. And I had written it all by hand myself. I decided to keep it safe, for now. Klement had several pressing meetings even at the late hour of arrival in Vienna. The troop caravanned into the city at dusk, with the streetlights already being lit along the avenues. The cargo and workers' carriages and wagons split off in front of the St. Charles Church, proceeding around the back of the block of buildings to the right of the church's front. Their quarters and stables for the animals lay down a narrow alley that split the different important buildings in that area of Vienna and had sufficient distance from the church and the houses and offices of important government officials so the aroma of livestock and their care didn't filter out. Vienna was a beautiful city, and crews of workers spent lifetimes cleaning the roads and avenues from debris and horse droppings. Rarely did any remain on the roads more than a few minutes. Horse-drawn carts crisscrossed the streets during all daylight hours, dutifully removing any and all unsightliness. The stables that were allowed in important areas were cleaned daily, and many of the loads were taken to composting pits outside town. Many of those were saved and used when the emperor had his personal garden built almost 20 years earlier. Moving down the main street past the church, they stopped in front of a building that was part of the block running half a mile, the only one with a permanent covered entrance on the street. Large stone 4- and 5-story flat-faced buildings made up this side of the street. Some were white, some were tan, and some were gray. Some of the stones were large on the ground floors, perhaps 2 feet high by 4 feet long. Some had been cut as prisms, some roughed out. Many had scrollwork features under small stone balconies. The one they were parked in front of had sandstone pillar-type blocks around windows, which were all framed with master carpentry of dark brown beeswax-coated artwork. Antiqued copper adorned the exterior hardware of the windows and the flashing hoods above them. A wide wrought iron balcony in the center of the third floor had a rounded, standing seam copper roof. The main door was double, with beveled glass and bright brass hardware, with ornate large wall lamps flickering on each side. The doorman, dressed sharply and in military uniform, stepped promptly to the curb and opened the door for Klement's carriage, helping Mrs. Metternich step out. Once the kids jumped out and quickly settled into a proper public state of mind by their mother, they walked up the 4 steps to the half-round stoop and were greeted by the head of the house, who promptly led them in. Their carriage pulled away, and the second one approached and stopped in front of the house. Monika exited. Then Wenzel stepped out, and he grabbed the several personal bags Monika had kept with her, joining her as they went into the residence. The entry space was wide, with a statue in the center of the back of the room, made of marble, on a round platform covered in intricate carvings of leaves surrounding a map of the Austro-Hungarian Empire at its center. The statue was of Ferdinand I, astride a horse arrayed for battle, with a saber high above his head. The statue was a new addition. It was not there the last time Monika had visited. Ferdinand I ascended to the throne on March 2nd of the last year. It was exquisite. The surrounding architecture of the statue was half-round, with ornate staircases circling either side, going to the second-floor landing. The carpentry of the railings and staves was incredible. They were each one a fluted pillar wrapped in climbing vines, the end of the banisters each a wide, downturned, 5-pointed leaf bound continuously and flawlessly to the carvings on each vertical stave. From what she had been told, the staircase and its components were original to the house, dating back over 150 years, and had taken 3 years for the carpentry alone. Gold filigree was laced into the designs, looping in and out of the carvings, and along the center of the leaves at the ends, and the center of the handrails for the whole length of the banister. The walls of the room alternated between mahogany panels and light pine sections, framed specifically to encase important paintings, far too many to name. On each side was a wide, solid oak-framed entrance to other rooms, parlor on the left, and on the right a room that served for public functions, 40 feet across and 100 feet long, the length of most of the structure. Only the kitchen and preparatory rooms lay behind it. Monica, will please excuse us. There are 2 people waiting for Klement, and I must retire and put the children to bed. The same room you had last time you visited has been prepared for you. Will you be all right if we speak again in the morning?" She was clearly tired from the trip, and so Monika agreed. "Of course, Mrs. Metternich. Thank you for all your help and the hospitality of your home." Monika waved as they proceeded up the stairs, the little ones waving goodbye with sleepy smiles. She, also, was quite exhausted, and looked forward to lying down. She proceeded up the stairway to the right, Wenzel 5 steps behind, carrying her bags. "Ma'am, are the things you require for tonight in these bags, or shall I have the remainder of your things brought up tonight as well?" He spoke softly from behind, not wanting to have voices carry if Klement was already busy downstairs. "Yes, thank you. Everything I require is in these bags," she said, surely to his relief. The thick carpeting on the stairs keeps the footsteps quiet. Upon reaching the second floor, she proceeded to the back of the house, down the hallway of about 4 more rooms, each rather small and intended for short visits from local officials. At the end of the hall, a smaller, less grand staircase led up and to the left to the 3rd floor, where her room was. It was first on the left, and the imperial quality door, carved with the relief of an eagle, was painted white with enamel and stood open, so she went straight into the sitting room and sat down. "Where will you be staying, Wenzel? I'm sure the conditions of your oath to my protection do not require your quarters in my immediate vicinity here in this home. I can feel all around me the protections, and they are surely adequate." Monika was trying to let him retire to wherever he felt most comfortable, and not encourage undue closeness. "Yes, ma'am. You couldn't be safer here. I will be in the next house, the quarters for personal security. If you do need anything, the entrance to our quarters is at the back of the kitchen and goes to the back half of the house on the right of this residence, as seen from the street. There is no connection between the rooms of that structure and the front of that house. The kitchen on the ground floor is the only connecting passage. I will stay there until I receive word from you or Mr. Metternich. Have a good evening, ma'am." He set the bags down, turned, and shut the door behind him. After a nice, relaxing bath, she came out to the sitting room, having smelled food, and found a delightfully cooked hen with carrots and peas left on the table in the center of the sitting room. She wasn't hungry, really, until she smelled it. So she ate, lay on the bed, and fell asleep right away. The next morning she woke up to the morning light filling the room. She hadn't even moved since the night before, and woke well rested. The sound of the maid bringing breakfast had roused her, and from the bedchamber she could smell it, and was instantly hungry again. She dressed and went in while it was being set on the small round table next to the window that looked down on the small central courtyard. "Sophie, so nice to see you again." They had known each other for years now. "Thank you so much. I'm starving." Monika approached the maid, smiling. She tied her robe and pulled out the chair to sit down. "Ma'am, we are lucky this time of year. We have ample squeezed oranges for juice at breakfast meals. It's divine. I brought you a green pepper and shredded roast omelette, toast, and coffee. Your customary sugar and cream are here also, along with honey. I always like having you here, ma'am." She smiled, curtsied, and left the room. She enjoyed the breakfast, savoring it while trying to finish before it went cold. She surveyed the room to see if it had stayed the same. The bedchamber was the same, a very large bed platform, perhaps 3 feet high, made of ornate oak, well oiled underneath. Square posts at each corner with sheer cloth draped around them, with brass ring holders hung from the planked top. Some of the furnishings, from desks to the water table, were of different styles, most of which were gifts to the royal family from renowned craftsmen around the world. Each is unique and incredible, though few matching sets. The sitting room featured couches and lounges arranged around the perimeter, most of which were from Italy and France, with several large tables situated in the center. The nook where she was taking breakfast was a cupola, rounded, fully glazed, and such a nice place to enjoy a fine meal. The floors were polished marble with several oriental rugs covering most of the open areas, pinned to the floor between the tiles so they don't move under duress. Today, she was hoping to speak with the professor to find out what else had happened during their trip to Vienna. The room where the Metterniches kept their magical portraits was a rather small, dark, locked room with no windows, converted from an old storeroom on the fourth floor. She would have to get the key from him to enter. Additionally, there was a merchant in town she needed to visit, who worked with crystal. For that, she would need Wenzel to accompany her. After choosing to dress appropriately for a guest of the Metterniches, in a city as stupendous as Vienna, she went downstairs and found Klement reading files in his study. Waiting on the edge of the room, he looked up and noticed her and waved his hand to bring her in. "Sir, have we any word from the Tellafrogs, or from the professor?" she asked politely, not wanting to disrupt any important work he might be doing. "No, I have not tried yet, and no news has arrived by post either." He finally looked up and over his glass at her. "Please, come and have a seat. These are files that the security services have compiled on your friend Runetta. I was going over them to see if I could find any compelling reason she might be involved in all of this. Please, take a look for yourself." He handed her a bound set of documents. Monika sat, took the file, and began looking through it. In a few minutes she had a question. "Why do they seem to have loose connections, even employment of these types of wizards, who all end up dead or in prisons? Could that have been the connection to John? Perhaps one of his prisoners is related somehow to this," she asked, still reading through the file. "I suspected that. As security measures, we keep lists that all bureaus do on magical criminality. I can find no connection to any of the prisoners that have ever been held at Firmveld and this lady. That said, there is no way of knowing every illicit activity of every person, especially those who are well-moneyed and secretive. Her family is both," he said, still flipping through the pages. "There is a connection. What it is, I cannot seem to nail down so." "If she or they are so interested in the events around Raileanu's family, why hasn't she just gone there? Why linger here, irritating me?" "I honestly cannot say." He shut the file he had and stood. "Here, take the key to the portrait room, and see if anyone is available to speak with you from over there. I apologize, but for space's sake, I do not have a portrait of John or Mary Tellafrog here. Only the professor, and with the hours he has put in trying to communicate with both sides of the world and scour records of illnesses, he may not be available yet." He reached into his vest pocket and pulled out a large key on a silver chain, unhooked its keeper through the buttonhole, and handed it to Monika. "You remember where it is, yes?" "Yes, sir, I do. I will locate you if I find anything out," she said. "Here." He stacked up the 5 or 6 file binders and handed them to her. "Leave these in the room as well. They will be safe enough to be locked in there. Thank you, Monika. Hopefully we will solve this. I have several appointments in town today and will not return until this evening. Have a good day, but make sure and take Wenzel with you anywhere you go outside this house. Oh, and the porter said your crates and trunks are in a small room of the central courtyard. That way you can walk outdoors in the good light, undisturbed by the operations of the house and away from prying eyes. Publishing magical works is big business these days, and I'd hate your and Raileanu's hard work to slip out before you're ready." He left with a smile, out to the foyer. Monika went straight up the staircases to the room, unlocked the door, and tucked the key under the waist ribbon of her dress so it wouldn't slip out. Inside, she lit the 2 lamps that were on either side of the room and looked for the professor's portrait. Unfortunately, he was not in it, just his empty chair. She set the files down on the desk and went out into the hallway, locking the door behind her. When she went back downstairs, Klement was already gone for the day. She looped the chain of the key around the ribbon once more and tucked the key itself behind the bow on her back. She went to the housekeeper, Sophie, and asked her to see if Wenzel was available to go into the town to the shop she needed to visit. After a few minutes she returned with Wenzel, and they then resumed her duties. Ma'am, well, you are stunning and quite metropolitan in that dress. Causing a stir with your beauty is perhaps less advisable than a more subdued and useful attire ensemble. Forgive me, but your security is my responsibility, and I think it would be wise," he said as meekly as he could, his head slightly bowed down, his eyes barely glancing at her. "I spoke for some time with Klement, and he didn't mention anything was wrong with what I am wearing." Monika lifted the edges of her skirt out with her hands, looking over the dress, trying to find a fault. "It is rare any more I can dress as a lady should, and enjoys the gracious nature of a beautiful city, sir. I don't think I will change," she said sternly and definitively, dropping the edges of the skirt and crossing her arms. Ma'am, if you would allow me to explain. Mr. Metternich is still wildly in love with his wife, consistently proclaiming her to all as the greatest lady of Europe ever known. I doubt he is as taken with your beauty as the rest of us are, and my first impression upon seeing you this morning is that you will cause much more of a commotion than we should invite. Please, if I may, I just received word a moment ago in our quarters that the whole entourage of the Metterniches is invited tonight to a symphony at Vienna Musikverein by its director, Ferdinand Gray Palffy, von Erdad himself. For this, you will be required to dress even more grandly than you are now. Mrs. Metternich has already sent word to the city's preeminent dressmaker to meet you here at 3 o'clock this afternoon to prepare one just for you. The symphony is at 8 o'clock. Is that all right?" Both excited and aghast, Monika decided the totality of the circumstances were decidedly in her favor. Compliments intentionally taken as insults are the tools of maniacs, and she would clearly enjoy the day. Besides, these dresses were diabolical to live with in the heat of August, especially if required to do much walking in them. He was right. If trouble did present itself, it would be best not to be bound tightly, restricting movement and activity. "Of course, you're right. I will change. I need to go to Swarovski Crystal Welten, and I need to be back before that appointment. Should we take a carriage, or are they otherwise occupied today?" "They are spoken for, my lady. That shop is only 4 blocks from here, and with appropriate footwear is not a chore to reach." He gave her a little bow. "I will wait in the foyer for you. Thank you for understanding what I was trying to convey." "Well, then, to the wardrobe." She gave him a nod, spun around with renewed purpose, and went back upstairs to change. She chose a tight-waisted, dark blue, floral-patterned dress with a plain black collar and cuffs. The ankle-length dress would hide her wearing her cork and suede-soled riding boots, which had a built-in sleeve for her wand. She wore a wide black belt with a plain steel buckle and a slide purse attached. Her hair was put in a bun at the nape of her neck. Now she looked more like a governess than any person of notable means. Once back downstairs, Wenzel gave her a smile and bow, and they proceeded out the front doors, held open by the military doorman. Making a right turn at the sidewalk, they proceeded to the end of the block and went right again. 2 blocks further, and the pair crossed a street and walked along the side of the Imperial Gardens. "Ma'am, have you ever been in the gardens?" Wenzel asked. "No, I have not," she replied. Perhaps Klement or the professor might arrange for you to go one day. I recall being a young boy watching the construction. It was really interesting watching the meticulous planning and construction. When we could, my friends and I would sneak in and play in the great mounds of dirt. I suspect some still sneak in, but once construction was complete and the iron fencing was installed, it became considerably more difficult. They say there are flowering plants in there from around the world. I shall ask if it is possible later. I would enjoy that, Monika said, peering through the fencing and shrubbery that encircled the whole 10-acre complex. It's just up ahead, ma'am, on the right. I will wait outside. Wenzel pointed to the shop, its sign now clearly visible. Thank you. I will not be very long, she said, waiting for him to open the door for her, and she proceeded inside. She had been here twice before, both times commissioning lead crystal cases for rare books she had been responsible for during conservation or restoration. She was delighted to see her acquaintance, Maria Stauffer, on the floor of the store. She had devised a technique to house the book, incorporating Monika's own design, which utilized small, specially crafted stones in a perforated vial to eliminate all moisture from the enclosure. It wasn't magic, but it was tricky potion making. My friend Monika! Maria smiled broadly and greeted Monika in the appropriate manner. What are you wearing? She asked with surprise. I am trying to appear quite ordinary, if you don't mind, she quipped back, both still smiling. Is it working? My dear, you could hardly wear a flour sack and still cause irreparable harm to men. Have you any news about Raileanu's father? Monika didn't know how to answer. How could she know about that? Did everyone know? Should she know? This was very off-putting, but she recovered and figured the truth would do. It's always how much truth you provide that can cause harm to people who might just be fishing. Raileanu is home with them. We're hoping he gets better soon. I wanted to ask you about the possibility of making a crystal horn frog. Monika tried to quell concern and get her friend thinking about something else. Horn frog? What is that? I don't believe I have ever seen one, Maria stated, with a bemused look on her face, as if Monika was making it up. Is anyone else here right now? Monika asked and looked around. No, I am the only one working today. All right, I'll show you. Monika reached for her wand, placed her back to the windowed front of the store, and protected the area in front of her on the counter so no one else could see. She tapped the glass countertop, and an image of the Texas horny toad appeared. Oh, my! Is that a reptile they have in Texas? It's an incredible little thing. How big are they? Maria grabbed a piece of paper and a charcoal shard, quickly sketching it. They look like little dragons, don't they? They're only this size. This is an accurate image, and to scale. Do you think you can make one that I can give to Raileanu's mother as a gift? Monika smiled as she finished her impressive artwork, making notes about scale and details. Yes, I can have this ready for you by the end of the week. Will you be able to pick it up, or shall I send it somewhere? Maria asked innocently. Monika didn't want to say where she was staying for obvious reasons, so she decided she, or likely a courier, would pick it up. I will be back. Thank you so much. Monika pulled 20 guldens from her waist pouch and gave them to her. Is that enough? It is. Thank you so much for trusting me with this thoughtful gift. Maria smiled, slid the coins from the counter, and went straight to work in the back. Monika went back out front, found Wenzel standing alert in the entrance inset, and they proceeded back to the house. In less than 20 minutes she was back and safe. She checked the portraits again. Still no luck. Shortly after lunch was set on, and since none of the Metternich family were home, she took lunch with the house staff. She refused to have an entire dining room set up for her alone, with priceless dishes and silverware being used and needing cleaning, just so she could eat lunch. Less than an hour later, the dress designer, seamstress, and 10 apprentices and helpers arrived, with 5 dresses for her to choose from, all the accoutrements to fit and finish them for a formal concert. Monica hadn't seen this many people attending to her attire since her wedding, and really enjoyed the attention, advice, and modern designs and materials. Choosing a cream, richly bronze colored silk embroidered floral pattern, firm to the waist, with a small bustle, square, low neck. The shoulders were slightly oversized for movement and pleated. The heavy white silk embroidery on the sleeves featured ivy, extending down to the wrist cuffs, where they ended in looping fleur de lis patterns. A wide silver ribbon went to a reasonable bow left of center, with long streamers dangling down the side of the skirt. Because the concert will require stairs to a box seat and hours of sitting, a wire frame was not considered for the skirt. One of the workers had over a dozen shoes for her to choose from, and Monica chose gloss white open top patent leather pointed toe, with a single gold strap and buckle, and a low heel. She was hoping to be able to walk through the Imperial Gardens after the concert. There would be a full moon tonight, and they were also well lit. Not as impressive or moving in moonlight, but it may be her only opportunity. After 3 hours of deliberation and work, Monica decided the dress was so nice she wanted to pay for it herself, and they came to an arrangement. After packing up and Monica seeing them to the door, the designer said that the payment was so generous that she would send her personal hairdresser over to help her prepare for the evening. Monica could not have known this yet, but this was the evening when all the horrible events were going to unfold in Texas, beginning with the tornado. She would know something of the events, however, before she ever returned to the Metternich's house that night. Klement and his entire family returned less than an hour before the concert was due to begin. He had arranged 3 carriages to take all of them the few blocks to the concert hall. Stepping out of the front doors, 3 low, open-top white carriages were waiting, the imperial crest posted prominently on the sides. Lanterns hung on the front corners. The horses were dressed in full ceremonial regalia, and the driver wore a tuxedo and top hat. Monica and Wenzel rode in one vehicle with the 2 eldest children, Klement and his wife and their youngest child in another, and his security in a third. The moon was huge and orange as it peeked over the horizon when they left, and the air was filled with the scent of honeysuckle, wisteria, and warmth, with not a chill to be found. It was only about a 10-minute ride to the concert hall, and there was a line of carriages waiting to offload their important passengers. Within another 15 minutes, the group was entering what many considered to be the most acoustically perfect concert hall in all of Europe. Its fixtures and furnishings were exquisite. Everything gleamed and spoke of opulence, and as they made their way to the box seating in the center, left of the stage, they took their seats while the orchestra warmed up. It was undoubtedly one of the most emotionally moving structures. Every fiber of one's being could feel the power of the sound in this place. Monica truly wished only one other thing, that Raileanu could be here with her. The concert lasted just over 2 hours, and after conversing with Klement at intermission, he agreed to pen her a letter giving her permission to walk the gardens before returning home. The garden was protected from the use of magic of any kind, as it was technically for the imperial family and their guests' use only, so he instructed the carriage driver and Wenzel to wait outside. The entrance was strictly controlled, so there was no need to worry about anything menacing occurring inside. Directly after the concert, the two went straight to the main gate of the garden. Wenzel got down and handed the letter to the guards, whom he knew personally. After a brief discussion, they invited her in. They unlocked the large iron gate and explained the pathways and which areas were best lit. Monica thanked them and went in alone. The pathways were wide, meticulously maintained of raked gravel and mortared stone depending on the feature, and its propensity to retain water, she supposed. The arbored tree varieties, groupings of striking colors of flowers standing tall on mounds and flowing down slopes, were incredible. When Raileanu comes back, she would have him bring her in daylight, definitely, and educate her on the proper names of every variety of tree and flower. She strolled around, smelling flowers she didn't recognize and realizing how few of these curated species she had ever seen in moonlight. Near the center of the park was a large stand of knurled, twisted oaks surrounding an ornate bench. So she sat to let her feet relax for a few moments. Monika rubbed her calves, which were not accustomed to these shoes, hoping she didn't already have blisters. Well, well, if it isn't my best friend Monika, a familiar voice said from somewhere under the dark stand of trees. Monika, still with her right hand by her leg, reached up to her thigh, where her wand was held in place by a garter, and pulled it out sharply. She knew it was Runetta. "Darling, that won't do either of us any good here. Surely you know that." She slid from around the wide trunk of one of the trees, not 20 feet away. "Do you know what this is?" Runetta said, holding a large, clear glass jar with something in it. Monika was furious that this woman was here. Her wand hand shook with fear and anger. She refused to lower her wand, pointing it right at Runetta. Monika stood up, turned right towards her, and approached a few steps. "What are you doing here? One call and the bodyguard will be here to seize you, which he has the authority to do," Monika said, glaring at her. "Oh, dear, I am only here to show you this. Do you know what it is?" Runetta slinked closer, jar in left hand, her wand in right, letting it bounce off her right shoulder. "Here, let me show you." She tapped the jar with her wand, and it filled with white light. "How did you... What is that in the jar?" Monika kept drawn on her, now with both hands, not knowing if her own magic would work at all, and how Runetta's was working. "Dearie, my family did the enchantments on this garden. I can do what I want here. You, I am afraid, cannot." Runetta made it to the bench, and when Monika backed up a few steps, she sat gently down, letting her right arm drape in a flamboyant, exaggerated way on the top of the bench. She extended her left leg across most of the bench, her right on the ground. Then she looked at the jar with her face turning slowly toward it. "It is a heart jar. I have one for every man in my service. I've a whole room of them. It's how I keep track of who is still doing their jobs." She held it up even closer to her face, illuminating her green eyes as she gazed in. "You see, as long as this copy of their heart keeps beating, I know they're still doing my bidding. This one," she spun it around in her hand, enticing Monica to look at it, "has stopped working." Runetta made a ridiculous, dramatic frown. "What does that mean? What are you saying?" Monika threw her wand hand down by her side. "Well, this jar and the heart inside belong to one of my most productive employees, and it isn't beating any more. I love to enter that little room I have." She set the jar down on the bench. "The beats can tell me whether they are sleeping, loving, killing. I've learned to know all of their beatings. When I walk into that room and close my eyes, I am filled with the power of life in my service. When one of those stops beating, well, it upsets my happy rhythm." That's a human heart? You're showing me this is now a threat, Monika shouted. Wenzel! This jar is only the proof I needed to tell you that man of yours is really something. I simply must meet him now. Runetta raised her eyebrow, pursed her lips into a twisted smile, raised her hand with a wand in it, gave it a little swirl, and was gone. Wenzel and the two guards reached her, but a moment later, while Monika was still staring at the jar on the bench, her uncontrollable anger still causing her to shake. She barely remembered to tuck her wand away on the far side of their approach. "What is that?" Wenzel asked, pointing at it, a look of disgust on his face. The jar was still lit for a moment, then it faded. They all saw what was in it. "Was that her?" "Yes, I must get to the Metternisches right away." Monika picked up her skirt and began to run to the carriage. Wenzel grabbed the jar and told the guards to patrol the garden looking for a lady wearing black with dark hair. He said he would take his charge to safety. He chased after her, catching up and taking hold of her upper arm to help her be steadier at speed. The guards had left one person at the gate, but the gate itself was open. He stood at his post, holding a lantern, and asked what had happened. "A tall woman in dark clothing with dark hair is in the garden and has threatened my charge. Secure the gate and let no one in or out until you see your sergeant," Wenzel told him as they loaded into the carriage. "Driver, to the Metternich house, right away!" Wenzel shouted, and the leads popped the back of the horses, who jerked off the line, jolting the passengers, who couldn't care less. In just 2 full strides, the horses' shod hooves were rapidly echoing on all the stone buildings. "Tell me what happened," Wenzel demanded. "Are you all right?" "Just get me to Klement. Thank you for being there so quickly." A little out of breath, she managed to get out. "She said that jar was some copy of a heart of one of her servants, who is dead. Then she said she had to meet Raileanu. Something terrible has happened. I know it." Monika unbuckled her shoes en route and handed them to Wenzel, who was looking very confused. She wasn't taking any additional time to get inside, regardless of social appearances. When they pulled to a stop, she leaped out and ran barefoot to the door, opened it before the doorman could get out of his chair, and ran inside. She considered yelling, but didn't want to alarm the children if possible. Wenzel came in right behind her, jar and shoes in hand. "Where is Mr. Metternich? I must speak with him right now," Monika said loudly to the doorman. "I believe he is in the study," pointing upstairs. She ran straight to it, holding her dress higher to run up the stairs, Wenzel close behind. She burst through the door, and he was indeed, with his head in his hands, and snapped it up when she came to the desk. "Runetta was in the Imperial Garden. She was able to use magic in there," she spoke as she huffed. Wenzel set the jar on the desk. "Do you know what this is, sir?" Wenzel pointed disgustedly at it. "I'm afraid I do." Klement was unsurprised. What is it, Klement? What do you know? What has happened? Runetta, said she had to meet Raileanu," Monika demanded. "Wenzel, would you please excuse us? Perhaps it is prudent to ensure the grounds are secure." "Thank you," Klement said calmly. Wenzel bowed and left the room. "Please, Monika, sit down. I have spoken with the professor. Much has happened just this evening. First, Raileanu is fine, safe and unharmed. I promise. Something has happened, however, at their home that is connected to Runetta, his father's illness, all of it." Monika collapsed onto a couch, exhausted from running, fear, adrenaline, and now this. It is so much that she can barely believe it herself. What Klement went on to lay out for her, however, made her head throb, and then she was acutely hurt. The professor had seen almost everything through his portrait that had transpired at the Tellafrogs. He had known somewhat of the dangers the High Elf was trying to identify and contain, but not the extent of the history involved for all of us. Until the end, with the elf's telling of the past, its dangers imposing on our whole world now. Honestly, none of us could have known. Runetta and whoever she was working with felt it was just a dark tool of magical power they desired. It is so much more than that. It unfolded to both of them that unwilling or unwilling, they've all part of something none could escape.